Welcome to this week's installment of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale with Don Henniger. I'm Don, and joining me as always is my podcast partner and Scottsdale advocate, Kevin Maxwell.
Big advocate.
You have always been a big advocate,
Yep.
Kevin. It's one of the things I enjoy working with you about.
It's easy to be, though, isn't it?
Pro Scottsdale. How can you be anti-Scottsdale? There's nothing to be anti about here. We live in a fantastic city.
We do.
And one of the reasons we live in a fantastic city is due to a lot of our hardworking public servants. And we have one of them today, and that's City Councilwoman Betty Janik. Betty, welcome today, and thanks for all that you do and your leadership in the city and all the service you do for our city. We know it's hard work, and we sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Betty is in her final year of her first term, the final year of your first term on City Council. And we sure were disappointed when you announced that you were not going to seek re-election because we think you've done a great job and we just really enjoy all that you've done there. Just a little bit of background on Betty. She's a native of Chicago and a graduate of the University of Illinois with a degree in chemistry. Mm-hmm. Among other things in her career journey, she was a chemistry teacher. Before winning election to the council, she was an active member of the community. I'm going to bet that continues even after you're off the council.
Yeah, I do have a plan.
Okay, hang on. Hang on to that. We're going to come back to that in just a second. But she served as treasurer of the Protect Our Preserve. She was past president of the Coalition for Greater Scottsdale and an advocate for bond proposals that support projects in our city. Betty, what have we missed in that brief background summary and what brought you to Scottsdale in the first place from way back when?
Okay, well, my husband switched jobs. He had been in Denver, and he accepted a job in the Scottsdale area. So it was to his liking, and so we moved here. And what is really hard to believe is we've been here over 20 years.
Wow, it goes fast, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It does, yeah.
Like so many people, where almost everybody's from somewhere else, but you come in and you stay.
Yes.
And I've been here since 1986 or 82 or whatever it's been, all that time in Scottsdale. And it's like, where else would I go?
True, very true. I think it's one of the premier communities in the country.
Absolutely.
It sure has. So you've been on council. You're going to be finishing up your fourth year. What has surprised you since joining the council? Either good or bad, delighted or not, or whatever. But what's kind of surprised you? What you got on board, and what did you see that you didn't know you were going to be getting into?
Okay, what I am pleasantly surprised about is the fact that we have such great community engagement. With that engagement, it makes sure we're going to continue to be a phenomenal city. I have 4 pages of people who are volunteering to serve on our boards and commissions.
Right.
And when you hear their backgrounds, you're like, whoa, I cannot believe that they want to take the time to volunteer for their city. Yeah. It's wonderful. Again, the citizens are totally engaged. They ask questions. They ask good questions. They're well informed. And we have I was a little bit critical of city staff from the outside looking in. We really, really have a good city staff. Yeah. They're very responsive to the citizens. I know there have been a lot of complaints about potholes. If you go through the proper channels, which is scottsdaleaz.gov, easy, whatever, they get out there and they're fixing them within a day or two.
Oh, that's good.
So all that is really good to see. And all that works together to make Scottsdale a great city and keep it a great city. Right. So that's the upside. Not too much downside. I guess probably the biggest surprise is how much information someone on city council needs to digest and understand. And it is a very steep learning curve. And then, when you get into zoning, that is really a steep learning curve. And zoning is one of those flashpoints with the city for or against development, et cetera. So that was a bit of a surprise.
I don't think people realize how hard a job it really is in terms of just the amount of information you have to read every single week and prep for all the council meetings. I mean, the packets are like, a couple of feet thick sometimes, it seems like, right?
Yes, usually 1,000 pages easily.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So when you jump into that as a brand new city council member, do you get tutored? Does the staff help you get through some of that stuff? They give you some learning opportunities? How does that work?
Well, the staff always has learning opportunities available. All you have to do is reach out and ask.
Okay.
And the staff is very polite and very informative and very helpful. And the other thing is city council members, the fellow city council members that have more experience, they are also very helpful. Yeah. And maybe, I don't know what the impression of the community is, but in general, we support each other and we work together well. And for me, I respect all the other people on city council.
That's evident, I think, Betty.
Yeah,
When
good,
we watch
good.
you on the dais, that's one thing that's very evident is how much courtesy and respect you show to other people. And you try to bring that to your position, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very professional,
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's, that's the way that people expect you to be as a leader in the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes most sense. So has your perspective on some of the issues that you've been dealing with over the past couple of years, has it changed from what you had held sort of before you went into council? Then now that you're digging into the issues, you're talking to a lot of citizens. Has your perspective on issues been specific changed during your last couple of years?
Yes, it has, because it's easy to throw bombs when you're campaigning.
Right.
It is not so easy to govern because you have opposing forces. And probably the best example is zoning in businesses. And businesses cause more traffic, but they also bring tax dollars.
Right.
And they also bring jobs.
Right.
And we have a problem with housing. So you've got to work together to try to balance all those competing forces. So it is not so easy to be always yes or always no, because you need to look at all the different aspects of it, try to come up with the best compromise that probably is the best benefit for the city.
So have you changed some of your views, which makes total sense to me. You get into issues, you learn more about them, and it may affect the way you think about them. Have you found conflicts with people in the community that thought maybe you were one way on one issue and another way on another? And if so, how have you dealt with that in terms of talking to your constituents?
Yes, there has been conflict. I think people thought, and perhaps I thought, that when I got to council, I would be more anti-development, that we don't want any apartments. We don't want any growth. And I have tried to deal with it honestly. I have sent emails and contacted to the people that really object to what I do. I've tried to explain to them, I have a process. I was a scientist, all right? We have a pecking order. And I use that same pecking order, a method, try to gather information, try to see how the people feel about it, try to see how it affects the community, and then move forward and try to explain your position. And I think this is a concern. I think a lot of the people who are anti-development think that a proposal will come to city council and we'll go yes or no. That is just not true. I am on DRB right now. There's a proposal for Cosanti, which is an apartment complex on the northwest corner of Scottsdale and Shea. And that area does need some more urban renewal. And it is a good area for workforce housing. And I toured the area several times, and the proposal came in wanting a 4-story apartment building. Well, you know what? That's not going to fly. It would be the first 4-story building in that quadrant.
And you guys reduced it, right?
It's too tall. So even though the DRB members thought it was a beautiful building and kind of were in favor, I said, I have to thread a needle. It is not okay to break that barrier to go up 4 stories. And so we got it passed. And so we went from 240 apartments down to 194. I call that big progress.
Yeah.
Will there still be more traffic? Sure. But will it help alleviate some of the problems with affordable housing in an area that definitely can use that? The answer to that is yes. So you just have to balance. And I know I will be criticized for it. And I understand that. I'm okay with it.
I also understand why you can stand up for. You've done your homework.
Yes.
The teacher,
yes.
she does her homework,
yes.
right? Yeah.
I do my homework, yes. Yeah.
And a lot of people, are spewing out about this or that on issues. Sometimes they don't know that stuff. They don't do their homework behind
Exactly.
that. They just have a thought about 4 stories, whatever. No, bad.
Right, exactly.
Not understanding what's really at the bottom of the issue.
Right.
That's tough.
Yeah. And the developer was wonderful to work with. I met with him. He told me 4 stories, why he wanted it. But he listened and he understood. And then he backtracked. And he got the owner of the land, I gather, to reduce the price of the property.
Really?
So that he could accommodate a 3-story building.
Make it pencil in, right?
Yeah.
Gosh, Don, that's something we used to call compromise.
Compromise, the C word. Yeah.
Sounds like a compromise. Wow.
Yes.
When you take the time, do your homework, and build the relationships with the people you're working with, compromise is possible.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always there, but it's definitely possible. I'm just thrilled to hear you're doing that. And we need more of that in all levels of our government these days, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing that I think is extremely important is that you listen to all the different points of view with respect.
Yeah.
And you don't write those columns where you throw them under the bus or take it to the extreme or try to incite maybe perhaps some type of a violent response. Just be respectful and listen. And usually people will understand your position and say, well, I get that. Maybe that's not as bad as I thought. So
those who write columns without signing their names to them should not be given the weight of any kind of concern whatsoever. Just blow them away and say, forget about this. Doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
You can put your name on there, then we don't care what you think.
Yes.
And those are usually the ones we're talking about. There's like 2 or 3 of them that we all know. And the funny thing is we all know who does them too.
True. Very true. Yeah.
But still that person, whoever, or that team of people, they just won't stand up and be held accountable.
Exactly.
No, and that's too bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, you talked a little bit about the tough issue with growth and development. It's been an ongoing issue here for decades, basically. But so, how do you talk to people, or how do you position, the idea that you still have to evolve and grow as a city, create jobs, and stay evolving and improving? How does that balance off against sort of the growth and development, anti-growth folks who say just stop everything?
I think you have to point to cities that have kind of waned because they have been so opposed to growth. I know right now we seem to be the center for the development of the chip industry in the United States, us, Phoenix, Chandler, Gilbert. And it is a mandate coming from the top of the country that we need to make these products so that we can thrive as a nation. And then it really comes down to the local level of, do you want these companies in your backyard? Yes, they do use water, but they are very valuable. They help with our sales tax base, and they bring very, very good jobs with them. So it elevates the knowledge of the community. It helps ASU, it helps our elementary schools, our high schools know that there's something to strive for. So I think those are all big, big benefits.
That's a great point. Yeah. Definitely.
So, like Don said, we were disappointed to learn that you were not going to run.
Okay, that's kind of you to say.
When did you know that you weren't going to run? Was it pretty early on? Was it midway through your term, or was it a recent decision?
I would say I worked 4 years on Prop 420, starting in 2016. And the last 2 years, it was way more than full time.
Yeah.
But what a phenomenal effort. What a successful effort. Okay. And then I realized if there needs to be some type of a change, you really need to be on council. And I had the recognition, which was good. But when I first got into it, I said, okay, you're going to run in 2020. You are not a spring chicken. 4 years later, you will even be older. Can you make it to that age? Okay. And I thought, yeah, I'll be okay. But I never had planned to make it a career. I never had planned to make it a 12-year commitment.
Right.
So, but seriously, at least a year before I realized enough is enough. My husband retired from an exceedingly demanding career, and I wasn't spending the time with him that I should be spending, and that I wanted to spend, never mind should, that I wanted to. So the decision was made way before the politics got quite nasty.
The assumption could be they got nasty. It's like, who needs this stuff, right?
Yeah. So that made it easy.
And we've talked. Maybe we'll come back and talk about that in a second too. But I do want to get to one of your prime issues, and that's the preserve.
Yes.
That's going to be a big ballot initiative for Scottsdale too. So talk a little bit about what you're hearing on the streets about people either understanding that issue or not, and your view of the importance of it.
Okay, so I guess I'll start with the importance. First, we purchase land, then we develop the land, but now you need to maintain the land. So it's coming full circle, okay? And it is exceedingly important that we maintain these very valuable assets. It's what keeps Scottsdale in the forefront of tourism, of our population. So it's exceedingly important to finish that circle. Is there opposition? Well, when it's election time, you have to come up with something that distinguishes you from your competitors. And what is that? Protect and preserve. Now, some of the opposition will say, these are all great ideas. We all need to do it. The money should come from the general fund, or you should bond for it. Well, bonding is very expensive. And if you bond, then the citizens have to pay for all these improvements. If it is simply sales tax, you've eliminated quite a bit of overhead, and everybody shares, all the visitors, all the businesses. And when I've seen the numbers and done the math, and I have done the math, and I'm trusting our treasurer's numbers, about 70% of the funding for this effort will come from our tourism, our visitors, and our businesses. Isn't that a good way to go? And it will cost the average household about, well, they're saying about $375, let's just say $4 a month.
Okay.
Isn't that a good investment in your community, in safe parks, in parks that are well maintained, in the safety of the preserve, which after the fire we had last year, we need to make sure that our fire department is prepared to do what they can to make it less likely there were fires, the preventive measures, but we also need to make sure they're beefed up to fight a fire should it erupt. And as we said earlier, I just hope that this coming summer is not as hot as the previous summer.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So level set for our audience who may not know, because you kind of go into the details of what's going to happen in the fall. But what's the issue at hand with the taxes? There's expiring. There's funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good
Can you
question.
level set for that for our audience.
So we have a bond, the first bond, the 0.22% bond that was passed, 2004, I believe it was, goes for 30 years, and that was to purchase the land.
Right.
Now, when you vote on a bond, you cannot change the criteria that the money goes for. It was for land purchase, okay? Then we passed a subsequent bond, and that include land purchase and improvements, which are our trailheads. And you got to admit, we've done a really nice job on our trailheads, okay? Nice. And there are complaints that there will be extra money left. Well, first of all, we have to pay off the interest on the bond, and we won't have a positive cash flow for several more years. But meanwhile, with this other bond expiring, is not now a good time to say, well, this is expiring. We can have a new tax that is lower that will then maintain the quality of what we've got. Some of our parks are over 50 years old, and they do need work. Are they beautiful? Of course. But, trees need to be trimmed. Yeah. Grass needs to be cut. The ponds need to be drained. They need to be enhanced, okay? And that is a continuing effort. So that was why we decided now was the time to go forward with protect and preserve. And I think as people, I'm not sure that a lot of the people are paying attention right now, except those that are intimately involved in government and maybe those that want to flamethrow as part of the election process. So I would hope that our voters, and I'm sure they will be smart enough to read about it. They will be smart enough to understand, and they will vote based on knowledge.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable.
You think there'll be some opposition to it, do you think?
Oh, yeah, there is opposition.
There is already opposition, really?
Yeah, that it's a slush fund, that the general fund should cover it. Well, the general fund does cover part of it, but we have a list of hundreds of items that need to be addressed. What's more important, maintaining a park or fixing a street or making sure that the pipes are tested and we know that the water pipes are working properly? Every city has way more demands for services and funding than funding that is available. And of course, then because the nature of society has changed, we have more crime, we have more homelessness, we have more need for police protection, which is the biggest part of our budget. And those needs, to a certain extent, in the general fund, take priority because it's personal safety. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we can maintain what we have, keep it in top-notch shape. And by doing this, we can do that. We can accomplish that. And know that most of the funding will go to the southern part of the city.
Right.
And we're going to start at the southern end of the Greenbelt and work our way north and then just continue around. And then one other thing that I think we need to talk about, when you're talking about maintenance, you cannot bond for maintenance. You can only bond for capital projects, which are hard asset, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of duration. Yeah. What are we talking about? We're talking about trees that need to be trimmed. Well, guess what? Maintenance needs to be done regularly. Right. Bridges that are, the footbridges that are deteriorating, that should be inspected regularly, but we don't have the staffing to inspect it. So then it becomes an emergency measure. And thank goodness our citizens call us and say, hey, this bridge is dangerous. And then we got over and fixed it right away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think voter education, you're right, is key because I think you're right. A lot of people who are going to be voting aren't paying attention yet.
Right.
And I worry about that. I also worry about the other big ballot initiative the city's going to have on the expenditure limits.
Yes.
And maybe we could talk about that for just a second too. But I also worry about both of those items are going to be on the tail end of a very, very long ballot this year in November.
And we are all concerned.
Yeah.
And we are saying start at the end of the ballot because that's what affects you
That's a great idea.
the most.
That's a wonderful
and
idea.
then go up to the top. So, the passing the I got to get the right term in here.
Right.
The expenditure limit.
Right.
Extending the expenditure limit, that should have been done a couple years ago.
Yep.
But because we had COVID, because some of the funds that we were given by the federal government didn't count towards that expenditure limit, we were able to get through a number of years.
Yeah.
But now we're at about 95%. And a good example is, and again, it's not for capital projects. This is money for maintenance, for staffing. We have the money now to pay off some of the debt from PSPRS, which is police retirement, okay? But we can't allocate it because we're too close to the spending limit. So that alone, I would hope, would get people to realize, hey, we are responsible with the way we spend money, but costs have increased. We need to increase that base level.
What people don't realize, it's not a tax increase. This is just giving you the freedom to spend the money you already have.
Yes.
That's what people probably will have to struggle with understanding.
Yes. So we'll definitely put out a big ad campaign on that. And that's why we call it the yes, yes vote.
Yeah.
We can't even do these improvements for protect and preserve if we don't have the spending limit increased.
You know, it's funny, Maricopa Community College District has the same problem. They're going to have an expenditure limit ballot initiative as well. And right now, they're exceeding their spending. So it's even more critical for them. So all of our 10 community colleges, including Scottsdale Community College, need that county-wide expenditure limit to pass as well, or they're going to have some real problems on their hands.
What's the consequences for them being in that position?
They face minor fines now, but what ends up happening down the road is they're going to suddenly find a huge hole in their budget. They're going to have to cut back all 10 colleges. And that's the worst case scenario. But there's going to be, again, down ballot, a ton of issues out there.
Yes.
State props, city props, school boards, city councils, all those things.
Yes.
It's probably going to be a 3-page ballot.
Yes.
We hope voters don't have fatigue by the time they get down the ballot and they vote and they understand the issue and the need for it, and two, they end up voting all the way down the ballot.
Right.
And typically, isn't the rule of thumb is if a voter is not educated about issue, they typically vote no and just to be safe.
Or if they're fatigued, right? And just vote no for everything, right?
So start at the bottom and work your way up, because what affects us the most is our local community.
That's right.
I think that should be a campaign. I love that idea.
Yeah.
When we come to election season, start at the bottom, because if that's where you get potholes paved and your garbage picked up and school board members elected.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And safe parks.
I love that. Yeah, that's fantastic. What other issues are on your mind in terms of big issues that you're dealing with these days? I mean, there's probably a handful that have been sort of come up all the time, right?
Oh, I guess, again, it has to do with businesses wanting to move in and wanting zoning changes.
Yeah.
Road diets, AKA complete streets. That is a hot topic.
Yeah.
And that is one where I guess I'd have to say I have some fairly strong opinions.
Okay.
I don't think that we should do what the citizens don't want us to do because we're getting federal money with strings attached. Okay, so the money to fix the curbs for handicap access
ADA
came
compliant.
with strings,
Right.
and the strings were road diets. Now, I was promised when we passed the transportation plan that they would talk to the neighbors, gather information, and decide yay or nay. And from what I've heard from several very knowledgeable people, about 70% of the population is against road diets. Why are we doing it? Why are we dividing our community that way? Now, if it is a new road, I think it's wonderful to put in bike lanes, okay? So it's just when you're going to the most crowded part of the city and you're taking away lanes and putting in bike lanes that aren't used a whole lot when there's another trail not that far away, I question why you're doing what you're doing. So, yeah, that is a hot issue. And yes, it does come up. And yes, it is an election issue. And I've already seen emails on that one.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
But outside of 64th Street and then Thomas, those seem to be the two areas where this has come up more often than not.
Yes.
Are there other areas of the city where there's actually road diet concerns?
Up north, there were some subdivisions that were on that list. And I offhand don't remember the names of them. They said that everything was fine, that they had a place for the bikes to ride, the roads were fine, and they had meetings about it, and they said, we do not want road diets here. So there is a general fear in more than a few of the communities about this issue. And I guess the other comment I would make is, I am in favor of biking, but how about why didn't we widen the sidewalks along 68th Street? Why didn't we put in a barrier between the bike lane and the traffic lane? If you really want to make it a safe biking area. No, we didn't do that because that wasn't included in the federal grant. It was just put in a bike lane. So
I can't wait for this election season, Kim.
So the fact that you've already taken the federal money and made some improvements to Thomas Road, does that make you bound to putting the bike lanes in then?
Yeah, when you take the money, one of the requirements
what's the whole issue? I mean, if it's something you have to do, it's just something we don't want to do, right? But
don't take the money.
Don't take the.
Don't take the money.
But you've already haven't already been
on some of them. Yeah,
okay.
But we've not taken the other money.
I see. So there's still an opportunity to turn the boat around.
Funds are still available. And I guess the other thing I do want to put in a bit of a plug on is sustainability. We have been knocking at their door for several years. What does our community want to do about sustainability? We have had study sessions, we've had input, we've done everything that's required. I am in favor, as a scientist, I am in favor of sustainability. Why would you not want to make your community more sustainable, especially with the water issues and the heat issues, okay? That is coming up again, is one more study session, and then we will be approving the sustainability plan. But know that it is aspirational. It is not mandatory. A lot of these citizens think that when we pass these big programs that they're mandatory. This is aspirational. But we give good guidance on what can be done to hopefully make our community cooler. And some of them aren't that expensive. So let's get the low-hanging fruit. Let's get working on it. And I truly believe as a scientist that if we do some of the simple things like planting trees, in our crowded areas, that we will make a difference and we can make a difference.
That's a good point.
So, yeah.
Speaking of heat, the political climate's pretty hot too.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked a little bit about that before we got on the air right now. But as you look back, and soon you'll be looking back on your career as a city councilwoman, and you look at the political climate that's out there now, what are your observations about how we deal with each other these days?
Okay, I would encourage people to think before they speak, and to think before they write. And I would encourage them to respect diverse opinions, listen to what's being said. We can all learn from them. We can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. And I hope that my term on council, I have exhibited the behavior I would like our fellow citizens to exhibit. We are not a city of extremism. We should not be a country of extremism. Compromise is not a dirty word. Compromise brings you to a very, very good outcome for the general benefit of the general population. So I would really encourage people to think before they act in a, maybe a little bit more aggressive fashion.
That's coming from somebody who's right in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
So that means something. It really does.
Thank you.
Bay, as you're looking, there's quite a few candidates that are vying for your seats.
Yes.
Do you think you'll be endorsing anybody, or have you thought about that, or are you still waiting to see?
I have talked to several candidates. I have a couple that I like. I am not sure.
Okay.
I am not sure.
That's fine.
What my role will be. Obviously, my role on protect and preserve and raising the base spending limit, definitely in favor of those two.
Okay.
I really have to think about how I want to proceed with endorsing candidates.
Kevin's trying to break some news here. That's what he's doing.
Yeah. And
I love it. No, I love it. He's got the journalism thing.
I do too. And I would like to know what your thoughts are. Do you think if I say something, it'll be that meaningful? And
No,
people
I'm
will
just sitting
say,
here thinking that, I mean, you're such a respected member of council that I'm sure a lot of people would really value and covet your endorsement. Of
course.
And I guess you already said what I was hoping that you'd say, is that you've had those conversations already.
yes. And what I will speak of and speak to is what are the characteristics I am looking for in council candidates.
Okay.
And perhaps I would mention the candidates that I believe have those characteristics.
That makes sense.
That they've given to the city. They've been involved in commissions. That they put the city ahead of their own personal aspirations, that they're involved. And hopefully that they're more moderate in their positions.
They're great traits, for sure. Yeah. As we wind down here, Betty, tell us, what are you most proud of during your term so far on council? And you still have a couple months to even improve on that, but so far, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm proud that we got the general plan passed. I put a lot of time and effort into that. Is it perfect? No. But we solicited comments from hundreds of citizens. We incorporated almost every single one in the plan. I was disappointed that the flamethrowers, when the ballots went out, started to make complaints. If they had sent us emails, we would have looked at what they wanted and incorporated it. But that's not the way politics works.
That's right.
Okay, why work for the betterment of the city when you can, cause consternation? So, but I am very proud that we got it passed. That was important. I am proud that we passed the Act, Equality for All People.
Yeah, right.
I think that was a very, very significant act. And I was disappointed that in the past, there was resistance to recognizing that we are all created equal. That is one of the things that surprised me, Don. You asked that. That is one of the things. Yeah. This is not a big deal. This is saying we are all created equal. Please treat us equally. Yeah. So I'm very proud of that. I have a list here. But I think probably those are pretty significant.
Those are big.
That we did those. Those are big.
Hats off to you for all of your involvement in all of those things. Those are all big, for sure.
Yeah. One more quick one, Betty, because you teased us earlier and said that you were gonna, you're pretty much still gonna be involved in the city.
Yes.
You were permanent. You were with Cogs before. I mean,
yes.
What's that gonna look like now?
Okay. What I want to do, what my goal is, to work on math literacy.
Oh.
I tutored No Child Left Behind.
Okay.
And those children have been left behind. Okay, when you can't do long division in less than 20 minutes reading off a chart, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, and it wasn't just one, it was many. So I would really like to work on that and maybe even frame the math problems in terms of sustainability. Give them, you give a word problem that would talk about issues of sustainability. So there's a way to work both of those in. And that's kind of, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to work with organizations that are already out there trying to improve the knowledge base of our students. And I think in this day and age, it is particularly important to be able to look at a graph and interpret what it is saying and what it is not saying and what to look for. So that's kind of where I would like to put my time and effort.
That's fabulous. That's fantastic. Yeah, and definitely need it. But Betty, thank you so much for your service to our city, for all that you've done for our community, and all that I know you're going to continue to do for our community. And that's going to be, and I'm thrilled to hear the math idea, and I have a feeling we'll see her around a few other things too as time goes on.
I think so, yeah.
Sure appreciate your time, Betty, and thanks for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your interview. Thank you.
You bet. And thanks to all of our listeners. We're going to see you next week for our latest edition of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.